every single morning, hundreds of millions of people, do something that feels completely harmless. It takes less than 5 minutes. It requires no effort. And for decades, nobody told them it was slowly, quietly, methodically, destroying the inside of their arteries. I am not talking about smoking. I am not talking about eating fast food every day. I am talking about something far more ordinary than that, something sitting on your kitchen counter right now. Something you probably had this morning without a second thought, and the reason your doctor has never connected this habit to your cholesterol levels and your arterial health is not because it is not important. It is because the connection is subtle, cumulative, and by the time the damage becomes visible on a scan or in your blood work, it has already been building for years. Now, what I want you to understand from the very beginning is this. High cholesterol is not a disease that announces itself. It does not send pain. It does not send dizziness. It does not tap you on the shoulder and say, pay attention. What it does instead is something far more insidious. It builds silently inside the walls of your arteries, layer by layer, year by year, until one day, the flow of blood is compromised enough that the consequences arrive all at once. A heart attack, a stroke, a clot, an event that in retrospect seems sudden, but in truth, has been in progress for a very long time. And the habit I'm going to talk about today is one of the most underappreciated contributors to that process. Not because it is exotic or rare, but precisely because it is so common, so normalized, so woven into the fabric of daily life that nobody questions it. Stay with me through this entire video, because what I am going to explain changes the way you will look at your morning routine. And there is something specific I will reveal about how this habit interacts with your liver, your LDL cholesterol, and the inflammation inside your arterial walls that most people never hear until it is too late. If this is your first time watching this channel, I want to ask you to subscribe right now and leave a like on this video. And I want to ask you something personal. Drop a comment below and tell me your age and where you are watching from. I read every single one. The people in this community are serious about protecting their health, and knowing who I am speaking to helps me create content that actually matters to you. Let me start by explaining something about how cholesterol actually works inside the body, because there is a fundamental misunderstanding that most people carry with them their entire lives. Cholesterol itself is not the villain. Your body produces cholesterol. Your liver manufactures it every day because the body needs it for cell membranes, for hormone production, for the synthesis of vitamin D. The problem is not cholesterol existing. The problem is what happens when there is too much of a specific type, particularly the LDL particles. And when those particles become oxidized and begin to interact with the inner walls of your arteries. Here's what happens mechanically. The inner lining of your arteries, called the endothelium, is supposed to be smooth and flexible. When LDL cholesterol is elevated, and particularly when it is oxidized, these particles begin to penetrate that inner lining. The immune system detects them as a threat and sends white blood cells called macrophages to engulf them. Those macrophages, now filled with oxidized cholesterol, become what cardiologists call foam cells, and foam cells accumulate into what we call plaque. That plaque narrows the artery from the inside. It hardens the walls, it reduces blood flow. And when a piece of that plaque ruptures, the body responds by forming a clot at the site, which can completely block the artery in a matter of minutes. That is a heart attack. That is a stroke. That is what we are trying to prevent. And I want to stop here for a moment and speak directly to you. If your last cholesterol panel showed elevated LDL, or if you have not had blood work done in the past year, or if someone in your family has a history of heart disease, what I'm about to say is important. The first link in the description of this video points to a complete, structured method developed for people who want to take their cardiovascular protection seriously. Not a pill, not a miracle. A real, evidence-informed approach to understanding your cholesterol, reducing arterial inflammation, and protecting your heart before an event forces you to. I want you to understand something. The people who end up in the emergency room rarely saw it coming. They felt fine. Their routine was normal. And yet, The process had been running silently inside their arteries for years. The difference between that outcome and a different one is often just whether someone had the right information early enough. That information is in the first link in the description. Please do not scroll past it. Now, let me tell you about the habit, and I want to be precise here because this is not about demonizing a single food or creating unnecessary panic. This is about understanding a specific physiological mechanism that most people are completely unaware of. The habit is this: consuming refined carbohydrates and added sugars consistently throughout the day, starting with breakfast, and doing so while believing that because you are not eating red meat or fried food, your cholesterol and your arteries are probably fine. This is one of the most dangerous assumptions in modern nutrition, and it is one that I see reflected in the blood work of patients every single week. Here is why it matters so much. When you consume refined carbohydrates, things like white bread, sugary cereals, pastries, crackers, flavored yogurts, sweetened coffee drinks, and processed snack foods, your blood sugar rises quickly. Your pancreas releases insulin to manage that rise, and insulin, among its many functions, signals the liver to produce more cholesterol. Specifically, it upregulates the production of a type of fat called triglycerides and promotes the synthesis of VLDL particles, which are the precursors to the LDL cholesterol that accumulates in your arteries. This is a well-established metabolic pathway. It is not controversial, and it means that someone who eats a low-fat diet but consumes significant quantities of refined carbohydrates every day can still develop elevated LDL and high triglycerides, not because of the fat they are eating, but because of the sugar and starch driving their liver to overproduce these particles. Let me give you a picture of how this plays out in real life. I had a patient, a woman in her late 50s, a school teacher who had been careful about her diet for years. She avoided red meat, she used olive oil, she rarely ate fast food, but every morning she had a bowl of commercial cereal with low-fat milk and a glass of orange juice. Mid-morning, she had a rice cake with a little jam. Lunch was often a sandwich on white bread, and in the evenings, she would sometimes have crackers and a small sweet as a treat. She came to me because her annual physical had revealed an LDL of 162, elevated triglycerides, and a low HDL. She was confused. She thought she was eating well, and in many ways she was trying to, but the cumulative carbohydrate load throughout her day was driving her liver to produce far more LDL than her body needed. And the low-fat content of her diet meant she was not getting the saturated fat that often gets blamed, yet the problem was still there. This is the habit that is silently clogging arteries in people who believe they are eating responsibly. It is not dramatic. It does not feel dangerous. It is just breakfast. It is just a snack. It is just a little something sweet with coffee. But inside the body, it is a signal being sent to the liver dozens of times a day. A signal that says produce more, store more, release more into the bloodstream. Now, I want to open a loop for you that I am going to close before this video ends, because there is a second layer to this story that makes the problem significantly more complex, and it has to do with something called small, dense LDL particles, and why your standard cholesterol panel may be giving you a false sense of security even when your LDL number looks acceptable. I will come back to that. But first, let me explain what chronic arterial inflammation actually looks like from the inside. When the endothelium, that delicate inner lining of the artery, is exposed to a continuous supply of excess LDL particles, particularly when those particles are oxidized by the byproducts of a high sugar metabolism, the inflammatory response becomes chronic rather than acute. The macrophages keep coming. The foam cells keep accumulating. The plaque keeps growing. And over time, the artery loses its elasticity. It becomes stiffer. Its ability to dilate and contract in response to changes in blood flow becomes impaired. Blood pressure rises as a consequence, because a rigid pipe requires more pressure to push fluid through it. And now you have a cascade: high refined carbohydrate intake driving elevated LDL driving plaque formation driving arterial stiffness, arterial stiffness driving elevated blood pressure, and elevated blood pressure placing additional mechanical stress on the already compromised arterial walls. This is not one problem. It is a system of problems feeding each other, silently, without pain, without warning, until the system reaches a threshold it cannot sustain. Now, let me close the loop I opened earlier. Standard cholesterol panels measure total LDL cholesterol as a single number, but LDL particles are not all the same. There are large, buoyant LDL particles that are relatively less likely to penetrate the arterial wall. And there are small, dense LDL particles that are significantly more atherogenic, meaning more capable of slipping into the endothelium and triggering the foam cell process. A diet high in refined carbohydrates and added sugars preferentially increases the production of these small, dense LDL particles, so someone can have a total LDL of 130, which looks acceptable on a basic panel, while carrying a very high proportion of the dangerous small, dense variety. This is why some cardiologists now advocate for more advanced lipid testing, including particle size analysis and measurements of ApoB, the protein that wraps around LDL particles and gives a more accurate picture of actual cardiovascular risk. I share this not to overwhelm you with complexity, but to make a simple point. The number on your lab report is the beginning of the conversation, not the end of it. So what can you actually do starting today? The first and most impactful change is to audit your carbohydrate quality, rather than just your carbohydrate quantity. Not all carbohydrates behave the same way inside the body. Whole grains, legumes, vegetables, and most whole fruits come packaged with fiber, which slows the absorption of glucose and blunts the insulin spike that drives liver cholesterol production. Refined carbohydrates, stripped of their fiber through processing, do the opposite. They are absorbed rapidly, spike blood sugar quickly, and trigger that hormonal cascade I described earlier. Reading a label and looking at the ratio of total carbohydrates to dietary fiber is a simple, free, immediately available tool that can help you distinguish between the two. The second thing is to reconsider the timing of your carbohydrate intake. There is growing evidence in metabolic research that the body handles glucose more efficiently earlier in the day when insulin sensitivity is higher, and less efficiently in the evening. Shifting your heavier carbohydrate consumption toward earlier meals and making evening meals lower in refined starches and sugars is a practical change that does not require calorie counting or eliminating food groups. The third thing is to get the right blood work, not just a basic lipid panel, but a conversation with your physician about whether advanced lipid testing, inflammatory markers like high sensitivity CRP, and fasting insulin levels would give a more complete picture of your cardiovascular risk. These are not exotic tests. They are available, and for many people, they reveal risk that the standard panel completely misses. If you have been watching this channel and have not subscribed yet, now is the moment. Hit that subscribe button. Every video I publish is designed to give you the cardiovascular knowledge that takes most people a lifetime to access, usually after something has already gone wrong. Do not wait for that moment. Going back to my patient, the school teacher. After understanding the mechanism I just explained to you, she made a series of targeted changes. She replaced her morning cereal with eggs and avocado. She switched her lunch bread to a whole grain variety with significant fiber content. She eliminated the mid-morning crackers and replaced them with a small handful of unsalted nuts. She did not go on a restrictive diet. She did not eliminate carbohydrates entirely. She simply improved the quality of what she was already eating and became aware of the insulin signaling that was driving her liver to overproduce LDL. At her 6-month follow-up, her LDL had dropped by 26 points and her triglycerides had fallen significantly. She had not added any medication. She had simply changed the signal she was sending her liver several times a day. That is the power of understanding the mechanism, to bring everything together. High cholesterol is not simply a matter of eating too much fat. The daily consumption of refined carbohydrates and added sugars triggers a liver response that elevates LDL, raises triglycerides, and increases the proportion of the most dangerous small dense LDL particles. This process drives chronic arterial inflammation, plaque formation, and over time, arterial stiffening and elevated blood pressure. The habit is ordinary. The consequences are not. And the solution begins with understanding what is actually happening inside your body when you make food choices, rather than relying on oversimplified nutritional messaging that has been failing millions of people for decades. Share this video with someone you care about, a parent, a sibling, a friend who has been told their cholesterol is a little high, but has not made the connection to their daily eating habits. Sometimes the most important thing we can do for the people we love is put the right information in front of them at the right time. I will keep bringing you content like this because I believe you deserve to understand your own cardiovascular system clearly, honestly, and completely. Your heart has been working for you every single moment of your life. Give it the attention it has earned. And this is exactly the kind of nuance that most people never get access to until something has already gone wrong. If you are managing elevated cholesterol, if someone in your family has had a cardiovascular event, if you feel that your understanding of your own heart health is incomplete, I want to direct you again to the first link in the description of this video. It is a structured, step-by-step method for people who are ready to go beyond the surface, beyond the basic panel, beyond the assumption that feeling fine means everything is fine. Because the most dangerous thing about arterial disease is not the event itself. It is the silence that precedes it. Years of silence. Years during which the right information could have changed the outcome. That window is open for you right now. The first link in the description. Use it before the window closes. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult your physician or a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, supplements, or medications. Individual health situations vary, and personalized medical guidance is always essential.